What could you want forgiveness cannot give? Do you want peace? Forgiveness offers it. Do you want happiness? A quiet mind? A certainty of purpose? And a sense of worth and beauty that transcends the world? Do you want care and safety and the warmth of sure protection always? All of this forgiveness offers you. Forgive the world, and you will understand that everything that God created cannot have an end. And nothing He did not create is real. In this one sentence is our course explained.
These are not ordinary books. They were dictated, not written. They are about love, about forgiveness, and about inner peace. They contain a whole philosophy for living in our times. And this is the story of how they came into being.
I was a psychologist, educator, conservative in theory and atheistic in belief. I was working in a prestigious and highly academic setting, and the job was ghastly at first. The hospital didn't provide space for our projects, and when we were finally housed in the new research building, it was the most difficult situation of my professional life. The work was oppressive and carried out in an atmosphere of suspicion and competitiveness, and interpersonal harmony was depressingly lacking. Then something happened that triggered a chain of events I could never have predicted.
We had worked together for a number of years, actually from 1958 until the summer of 1965, with a good deal of improvement in terms of the organization of the psychology department at the hospital, but we weren't really at peace. And one day I gave Helen a little speech. This was in June of 1965 before we were going to a meeting. Essentially what I said is, there must be a better way of living and working in the world, of handling our personal and professional relationships and problems, and I'm determined to find it. This was kind of a long speech for me, and I remember feeling at the end of this that Helen probably was going to laugh, but to my amazement, quite the contrary. She said, "You're absolutely right, Bill. We'll find this other way together." And that was the beginning of a joint commitment which the two of us made.
Miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. The real miracle is the love that inspires them. In this sense, everything that comes from love is a miracle.
As a research psychologist, Helen couldn't understand this flood of mental imagery, these various psychic experiences that she kept having, and it had a cumulative impact on her during the summer of '65. She kept wondering, am I losing my mind? Am I going crazy? How do I reconcile this with my role as a scientist? So her conflict certainly increased enormously during that period.
This psychic phase ended abruptly with a particularly clear picture episode in which I knew I had made an irrevocable choice. I saw myself entering a cave cut into a rock formation on a bleak, windswept sea coast. What I found in the cave was a large and very old parchment scroll. Its ends were attached to heavy gold-tipped poles, and the scroll was wrapped around them so that they met in the middle of the scroll and were tied tightly together. I managed to untie the ends and open the scroll just enough to reveal the center panel, on which two words were written: God is. Then I unrolled the scroll all the way, and as I did so, tiny letters began to appear on both sides of the panel. The silent voice, which I had heard before, explained the situation mentally to me. "If you look at the left side, you will be able to read the past," said the voice. "If you look at the right side, you will be able to read the future." But I hesitated only a moment before rolling up the scroll sufficiently to conceal everything except the center panel. "I am not interested in reading the past or the future," I said with finality. "I will just stop with this." The voice sounded both reassured and reassuring. "You made it that time," it said. "Thank you." And that, it seemed, was that.
One night she called me, and this was in October, and said, "You know, that inner voice refuses to go away. It keeps saying, 'This is a course in miracles. Please take notes.' What shall I do? Suppose it's crazy. Suppose it doesn't make any sense, you know. Suppose it's flipped." And she was obviously going through a great deal of anguish and agony at that point. Well, I said the only obvious thing: why don't you take down whatever it is? You can read it to me tomorrow morning in the office, and if it doesn't make any sense, no one else ever has to know about it. But at least we'll know what it is. So that's what we did. The next morning, Helen came in, and as she read that beautiful introduction to the text, which says, "Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." It was obvious that we were tuning in to something that could hardly be regarded as crazy, no matter how unexpected it was.
This is a course in miracles. It is a required course. Only the time that you take it is voluntary.
And when Judy read this introduction, I had this experience that I hadn't experienced since I was a child. I was one with everything in the room. I felt totally at peace. And something deep inside of me said, "This is a tool for you. Use it."
Where did the writing come from? I did not understand the calm but impressive authority with which the voice dictated. It is largely because of the strangely compelling nature of this authority that I have referred to the voice with a capital V.
Read one page, and in that one page of reading it, I heard for the first time in a little inner voice that said, "Physician, heal thyself. This is your way home." And I had the most amazing experience of feeling a sense of oneness with the whole world, that there was absolutely no separation, that there was only love, and a real feeling that I was to be of service to God. My whole life would be changed, and it would be a life of giving and a life of being of service. I really couldn't understand that, but it was a very deep, penetrating feeling. And I became a student of the Course, fought it all the way, couldn't deal with the thickness of the Course, let alone its Christian terminology. And yet there was something about the Course that just compelled me to go on.
The Course in Miracles seems to fit all the criteria for being a genuine spiritual discipline. The first is that it has no guru, and that people who practice it are thrown back on their own responsibility. They're told that ultimately the decisions have to be their own to make through accessing their own inner wisdom. So the source of wisdom, the source of authority is within rather than given to someone outside.
Tolerance for pain may be high, but it is not without limit. Eventually, everyone begins to recognize, however dimly, that there must be a better way. As this recognition becomes more firmly established, it becomes a turning point. This ultimately reawakens spiritual vision.